Hey everybody, this is Amy Wells, Titans Amy from the Tennessee Titans.
This is Nate Bain, Titans social media manager.
Hey everybody, it's Brett Bryan, game day host of Titans Radio, and you're listening to the Titans of the Southwest podcast with Lito and Big Mo.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Titans of the Southwest podcast. With me, as always, is my partner and co-host, Lito, and this is me, Big Mo. Today we have a guest that we're bringing onto the show today, somebody who attended the first day of training camp today and put together an awesome thread of what was going on. With us, we have Travis May. Travis, thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Just glad to be here talking some Titans, and just glad that football is finally back.
Right.
Too long.
Too long, man. It felt like a really long summer, especially knowing that the team made so many great moves in the offseason and the draft. I mean, the season can't get here soon enough. If you're not following Travis, go follow him at FF_TravisM. Now, Travis, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have been covering the Titans some here for Dynasty League football for a couple years now. I really enjoyed doing that. A lot of what Dynasty League football does is fantasy football focused and Dynasty fantasy football focused, but I just really love the whole draft process, looking at the prospects and things like that, all the way to where they're on the team and the training camp process. All of that is just a blast. Going to practices and writing sleeper pieces and covering them throughout the season. But beyond that, I got my start, I guess, quite a while ago, writing for thefantasyauthority.com. So a lot of what I've done in the past and still now is fantasy football centric, but wrote for Last Word on Football here recently for the Titans. And so just love covering basically fantasy football, the Titans, and some of the Falcons here and there as well. But have the Dynasty Life podcast, which I get to do every week, just about up to episode 100 of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is really weird. Time's really flown with that. But that's really just talking about everything from college football to NFL to fantasy football and how that all fits together in this funny Dynasty Life. It's a Dynasty fantasy football focused podcast, but just real life college football. Have guests on, talk about their life, how football fits into that. So just really enjoy putting that together every week. But was just excited to finally be at Titans camp again. And I've done these threads before, just a couple of years now, I guess 3 years now. But today, for whatever reason, just kind of blew up. And so I gained a lot of traction. So if it earned me this guest spot, I guess that's a good thing. So
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it has to do with the fan base increasing. Last season, first playoff win in nearly a decade, and I mean now we're on the right track. We got fresh new coaches, so the fan base is growing, and so that probably was a big factor into the increased traffic for you. And I mean, you deserved it, man, because you put together a really awesome thread that I think really helped paint the picture of what was going on at camp. Lito, you want to say hello? Lito's a little under the weather for those that don't know, but he's going to truck it. He's a trooper.
No, I genuinely really did appreciate the thread that you had going on, because I was at work and I didn't get a whole lot of extra time today. And Mo calls me up, tells me about the thread, and he tells me about everything. And I was like, oh, okay, let's take a look. And so I stopped what I was doing. I took a quote unquote lunch break and I took a look at everything, and I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. And I think you're right. I mean, the fan base is growing, but also, I mean, Titans Twitter in general seems like a really well-balanced and just awesome machine going forward, because I look at other teams' Twitters, and it doesn't seem the same. Like they're either just talking trash about other teams, their rivals, cough cough Jaguars kind of thing, or just not really doing it and like ignoring what's right in front of their face and just talking about their dusty old Super Bowl rings. And it's just like, man, come on. Like, Titans Twitter seems to actually be engaged and really in the thick of it. So I think all of those things combined, you just kind of got lightning in a bottle on this one. So A lot of people know your name on this, and I know we're definitely following you, and I think everybody else should too for any kind of good coverage because we're not there. Like, we're halfway across the country. But he was right. I mean, the pictures you painted and everything were just is amazing. It gave us kind of inside look on everything, so I appreciated it.
But yeah, no problem, man. I just love doing it. It is funny just trying to keep track of everything and trying to find time to tweet it out, but also take notes, and it keeps me surprisingly busy. But it's a lot of fun. I love doing it. So.
Well, you do it well.
Definitely, yeah, you did a great job, man. What I wanted to ask you about that, but let's just jump right into it. Did you show up with any particular players in mind that you kind of wanted to focus on a little bit, or did you just go with the open mind and didn't really have certain specific targets you were going to focus on?
Yeah, every year, so I kind of prep a doc on my phone that allows me to easily update reps, basically with tallies and the team that they were running with, and like a little general side note doc of general happenings as it kind of in chronological order.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of have it organized so that I can go in and really react to any player that does something worth noting. But yeah, I mean, I definitely had my eye on the split at running back with Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry. I knew Rashard Matthews was going to be out, so I wanted to see just how dominant of a performance Taylon Taylor was able to put up there in terms of how many snaps he got, but also what he did with that. I think that was going to be huge coming into today. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I wanted to look at the inside linebackers and see, who was going to be playing where, and if Rashaan Evans was just going to be plugged in right away, or what that looked like. And then the defensive back rotation with, Malcolm Butler being the new face, and was he just going to come in and be the guy right away, or what was that going to look like? So learned a lot about all of those things today. So I can't wait for the rest of camp. I'm actually going to be there tomorrow, which is, Friday. I don't know when this is going to post, but the 27th and 28th, and then again next weekend, the 3rd, 4th, and then one of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers joint practice with the Titans on the 16th.
Nice.
So get to kind of spread it out and go to lots of practice this preseason. Can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. We'll be following those threads religiously, man.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, unless Lito has a follow-up to that, I had another question, man.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to pick your brain all throughout about all of those players, but I'm sure we're going to get to that later. So if you have a more specific question, that works too.
Okay. Well, for me, I noticed after you kicked off your thread with, kind of saying who's taking the field first and what players, you dropped some names of who was on the field first and which defensive players were assembling first. You focused on the type of personnel groupings that the first team was running, or the probably first and second teams were running. And you noted that it was primarily running plays that was being a central focus of the offense. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, especially in the first offensive run through, and it depends on, like, from practice to practice. If you've gone to a lot of Titans practices, they'll run. You can kind of tell what kind of drill or what kind of focus they're doing based on the personnel that they're running with. But sometimes it'll have a more run-centric drive, especially at the beginning, just to kind of get the offense kind of in a rhythm. Everybody just flowing and moving, and then they'll generally kind of close it down with a passing play. But oftentimes when they're in that running mode, they're in the second most common offensive personnel grouping that, the shorthand for is just the number 12. And really 1-2. It alludes to the number of running backs and tight ends on the field in that offensive personnel package. So the first number, if you're not familiar with the shorthand, the first number alludes to the number of running backs on the field or in that personnel package. The second number alludes to the number of tight ends. And you basically don't have to know any more information because if you know those two, you know basically the rest of the formation and who's there, like the number of wide receivers. So 12 is just one running back, two tight ends, and two wide receivers on the field. And so they ran a lot of that to start the day. And Henry was the guy a lot in that package. all day. And they did more of that than they did 11 personnel, which was surprising just because last year LaFleur's offense in LA ran like 80+% of their, I think it was 84% of their snaps with 3 or more wide receivers on the field. So I expected more of that today. And maybe they'll open it up and get to that point, but I think they really just wanted to get in a rhythm and get in their running game going and before they did anything else.
Yeah, I think had Richard been healthy, you might have seen some more 3 receiver sets, but that's just a guess. But with him out, I think they're kind of just easing into the new offense, because if they open up with the 3 wide receiver sets now, I mean, a lot of those lower end guys, not lower end, but like the 3rd, 4th receiver spots are going to be shifted. So, that's just my guess on that.
Yeah, and I think we will. I mean, when Richard gets back into, his normal routine with the offense, I'm sure we will see more 11 personnel. It would be really strange if we didn't. Although, with that said, I mean, last year, the Titans did run almost like the lowest percentage of 3 wide receiver sets. So maybe they're just slowly transitioning them to that point before we kind of jump off the deep end. I think it was less than 50% of the time. It was like 40-something% of the time that they actually had 3 or more wide receivers in the field, which is way below the league average for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned throughout your thread that Johnny Smith really stood out. Can you talk a little bit about what stood out to you that he did? I know you highlighted his blocking and also noted that he made some pretty good catches throughout the day.
Yeah, I just on that one catch, I think I talked about, he actually, it's pretty much a diving catch to the side. It was on an out route, and it was kind of a bad throw, honestly, by Blaine Gabbert, which he did that a lot today. He was sailing passes over heads quite a bit, but maybe that's just because that's Blaine Gabbert. But, Jonnu did well on a couple balls, fought through contact up close, even through his routes. And he looked, he looked slightly bigger, or at least he played bigger in terms of his blocking. He just is way more confident this year. I mean, obviously, your second year, you're not a rookie anymore, but he just knew what he was doing. He knew where to be, a lot more so than last year, especially early on last year. So I feel like he just feels at home. He can relax and just do his thing, and that's showing just about on every single rep. So, and it's clear that they want him to be the future. I mean, even when they kind of took the kind of core offense off to the side and had their own special drills with quarterbacks, he was there. It was Delaney and him, Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis, and then Taywan and Corey. So good to see him already in that veteran crew on the offense.
Yeah. So is he kind of lining up as the veritable just number 2 tight end, just straight across the board, or is like how's that kind of shaping out?
Yeah. No, not really, because it was interesting today. And Delaney Walker did, I guess, probably about 2/3 of the way through, he did tweak his ankle and saw fewer reps after that. So I'm not sure what the normal split will look like when Delaney is not tweaking his ankle. But he popped up and was back in after that, but just less so. So, I mean, Jonnu sometimes will be on the field with Luke Stocker, who's on a pretty affordable contract. Probably, actually, in my opinion, is going to be the 3rd tight end that sticks instead of Supernall this year. Supernall is still recovering, and, I mean, he's not amazing. He was really just kind of a special teams guy who can block as a tight end. Stocker, I think, brings a little bit more versatility. So a lot of times Jonnu would actually be the tight end 1 on the field, and then Stocker would either be the tight end 2 on the other opposite side, or be in more of like a fullback role, actually, and then maybe split out and kind of stack one side or something like that. But they were moving Stocker around as either a decoy or a blocker mainly. But oftentimes, you'd see both Jonnu 81 and Luke Stocker 88 out there together instead of Delaney at all, which that was surprising. I thought that they would be more focused on Delaney only being the number one. But there were a lot of first-team reps for all three tight ends that should probably make the roster.
Yeah, I think part of that could be they already know what they have in Delaney.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you know what I mean? They don't want to risk him because, you know,
Yeah,
if he goes down, we're in a world of hurt.
yeah.
But I think Stalker also displaces Superna. I think he's more valuable, and he will be more valuable in the changing offensive system due to him being able to play fullback and line up, you know, in multiple spots along the field. Did you notice any formations where all three tight ends were on the field with maybe Stalker in the fullback role?
You know what? No, I didn't actually, and I didn't really surprise me. I think I maybe mentioned it somewhere in that thread, but essentially they kept it pretty simple. They didn't run really complex defenses. I mean, there were a few blitz combinations, but nothing over the top. It was generally like off of one side or something on the defensive side. And then on the offense, it was pretty vanilla. But, I mean, it was just, like I said, 11 personnel and 12 personnel. There was no jumbo package. There was no goal line stuff. They were just kind of getting everyone back in the rhythm, getting their legs moving, getting everything going. I think probably as soon as tomorrow or maybe when the pads come on, they'll probably do some different packages that you might see some goal line looks. You might see some more spread out formations. And just as they add layers to the playbook there for the rookies and just as this whole offense learns the new offense that's being installed. So today was probably just stripped down, a little bit too simple. I'm sure we'll see more as we progress.
Yeah. How involved did you see Vrabel? I mean, by all accounts, it seems like he's just a in-your-face kind of coach, but we all know he's a defensive coach. So, like on the offensive side, was there any kind of impact that he had on even just the stripped down, first day of practice type of thing?
He was observing a lot on the offense, whereas he was way more involved on the defensive side, as is predictable really with him and his background. I mean, when they would break up into positional drills, he was with the linebackers quite a bit. I mean, and not just with the rookies, not with just the young guys. I mean, he grabbed Wesley Woodyard by the shoulder pads and was like, "Hey, no, like this leverage, like this timing." So it was awesome. It was interesting to see him. I mean, that involved, like really just hands-on, literally hands-on the linebackers, even defensive linemen. I think the players, it was clear that they respected that. They respected him. They respect him as a player and a coach, and they just know that whatever he says is worth listening to. That was really cool to see just the linebackers respond. And they did so like right in front of us over on the sideline. It was just kind of cool to hear him. You could actually hear what he was saying. And yeah, he's I love his style so far. So I'm excited for Vrabel.
So with that being said, I know you mentioned you've attended the past few training camps. What's the biggest difference you notice in terms of just the vibe and overall energy from last season compared to the new coaching staff in this year?
Well, I mean, I think that hands-on approach trickles down to the coordinators, to the position coaches. I got a chance to, before practice, talk to Tyrone McKenzie, the inside linebackers coach, who's just really cool, down-to-earth guy. Just really excited about the young depth that they have at linebacker on the inside. And so I think that hands-on approach, that young, I mean, it's kind of a younger group. I mean, even at some of they're not, their core coordinators, not all the time. I mean, Dean Pease isn't young, but I mean, they've got a lot of positional coaches that definitely have a lot more energy. So that's been a lot of fun to see. And Vrabel being that vocal guy, that's just not what we've seen in a while in a coach.
Nice. I'm wondering if we could shift over a little bit. I'm wondering if you had to give the offensive linemen, if you had to give them a grade for their work today in team drills, what letter grade would you give them and why?
It was, it's correct, because they were trying a whole lot of different things with line. Conklin not being there, Lawan not. I mean, Lawan was there, but I mean, he was not always even involved in playing today. I didn't see how many reps he actually got. I didn't pay attention as much to the offensive line because I noticed from the get-go they were shifting the personnel around a lot. Early on, they even had a couple false starts and they shifted out the whole offensive line. So it was not a good day for the offensive line, and that was probably just because people were in spots where they're not used to being. When Kelly, Dennis Kelly's like your best tackle. I mean, he's supposed to be your third tackle, and he's really your best tackle for most of the day because of his limitations with health, essentially, for the most part. It's not ideal. So I think that will get better, and as soon as Jack Conklin's back, it's going to be infinitely better. So I'm hoping sooner than later. But today was not good, and the running game that showed. So that was probably the worst position group today, which is strange considering how good they've been. But new faces and their best players not being there,
It's a little bit concerning to hear, but I mean, the way you justified the answer, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Luan, half of his mind is obviously on getting that contract. Like you said, Jack being out, multiple rotations. I mean, but to me, that has to be the best position group going into the regular season. So whatever wrinkles they have now, Carter has to make sure he irons all of those out because it's going to be the success of the team. I think depends on how well the offensive line performed, especially in a new scheme.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think they'll get there. I'm not super worried about it. It's first practice. Everything's vanilla. So, I give the edge to the core front seven that really hasn't changed much outside of, adding Evans, and he wasn't even a first teamer most of the day. So there's a lot more cohesiveness on the defensive side of the ball today than there was up front on the offensive line for obvious reasons. So, I'm not worried at all.
Okay, so speaking of the defensive line now, what were some of the defensive packages that you noticed, and who was getting the nod to blitz?
Yeah, so I mean, last year how they deployed Woodyard in terms of actually having him blitz some, that actually then did happen a little bit today. Not too much, like I said, almost not at all, because it was super vanilla stuff. They're just getting their legs back under them. But I think we're going to see that a lot again. So I was not surprised by that at all. He and Arakpo work well together when they, do stunts or whatever together. Nothing exotic yet, and I'm sure they'll add wrinkles as time goes on. But Evans I was a bit surprised that Compton got the nod as the second inside linebacker on first team, but I guess it's probably just typical first day stuff. I mean, it would be kind of disheartening to the new free agent signing who's a veteran to come in and he's already playing behind the rookie day one. But, Evans got some first team reps as well on the inside. But that was a bit surprising. I guess I was just assuming Evans being a first rounder, he would get the nod immediately, but he will for sure.
Yeah, he will for sure. I think what they're doing there is actually smart because it's gonna build Compton's confidence. Like, all right, they brought me in to at least have a shot to keep the starting job. Plus, they're gonna make Evans work to take his job. So I think they're in the end, towards the middle of the season, you'll see Evans as a starter, maybe even sooner, just because his physical talent might be a little bit better once he gets accustomed to the NFL speed and accustomed to the scheme that they're going to be running.
Yeah, I honestly think it'll be by the beginning of the season, but I completely understand why they would want to wait to really thrust him into the fire like that. But the inside linebacker depth I like quite a bit. I mean, they've got Darren Bates, who's an all-star special teams ace, and Nate Palmer even as the sixth guy, and Jaylen Brown to come in at some sub packages. So they've got a lot of flexibility at inside linebacker this year.
Well, one thing that, I mean, even on the press conferences that Arakpo is stressing was depth. Like he just keeps stressing depth. And so it seems to me like and he even said, like, in an ideal world, he'd only have 25 reps per game because you just keep them fresh and then send somebody else out there and then keep them fresh. And so I don't know if we're going to have like defined starters, which is kind of weird. Like we have just solid players all throughout. If we have a tight end that's really burning us and Evans doesn't grasp it just yet, Jayon Brown, he helped us out with tight ends earlier or last year. Like it may just be personnel wise, just these are the people we're going to start with, but it's going to change all throughout. I don't know, that I may be wrong, but that it just seems like we're so much more stacked than we had been in the past that we can afford to not just have one person out there the entire game.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Maybe not as deep as like the Eagles pass rush or anything, but
Yeah, nowhere
I
near as deep
yeah,
as Eagles.
yeah, I definitely like what we have this year though. Arakpo and Morgan have been extremely productive. Harold Landry had some nice bend and burst, and caused some pressure today, which was awesome to see right away. Aaron Wallace is another guy who's going to be on the outside for us this year. I like those four a lot. After that, it's really all up in the air as far as true edge designation guys go. But yeah, I like the linebacker position. I like the defensive line. I guess we don't have many true defensive ends, but we've got some big dudes on the defensive line. Jarrell Casey's not super tall, but he's funny big. We got Benny Logan, who's just a massive human being. Austin Johnson, Daquan Jones. I actually used to be his neighbor over on Demonbreun Hill, and he is he's huge, but somehow still fast. So I think he's going to be a really important part of the pressure and setting the edge in the run game. I think early last season, Daquan Jones was the reason we had such a defensive, brick wall against the run, because he just sets the edge like none other. So
yeah, he doesn't get pushed back much, man.
No, he's strong. So I like the front a lot, especially against the run. I'm not sure how we're going to have it. We're not going to have an elite pass rush this year, but I think it'll be good enough.
Well, I think something that could contribute to us having close to elite. I'm not going to give it the elite label. Close to elite of a pass rush is going to be the secondary. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the secondary, which I think is going to contribute to maybe a close to elite pass rush. If we can have a secondary that's suffocating and as intense as it appears to be on paper, I think we're going to be in good shape. I really can't tell you how fired up I was when I saw Malcolm Butler snatch Corey Davis's soul today. I thought that was awesome, and tell me what that moment was like to experience being there and present for training camp.
It was a great moment for Malcolm Butler because he needed that. Corey Davis abused him in the playoffs last year.
Redemption.
So that was kind of cool. Butler really I think he knew exactly what was coming, so that helped. But he jumped it perfectly. They collided. I don't know if you actually saw a video or anything like that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So kind of wrestled away, and Corey didn't, give it to him either. So I think it was a good competitive moment, and then he punted the ball right after. It's just, good to have that fire. Butler had a great day overall, so that's it was good to see.
Is his energy and overall grittiness and just that ruthless approach, is it bleeding over to the other guys that you've noticed?
Yeah, I think that. Ryan has a little bit of that, not to the level of intensity that I think Butler does. So I think that bled over there. I think they kind of fuel each other in that way. And then Byard, he's just an animal, and he's all over the place. So I think it's going to be a really cohesive group, especially if all five of the main, nickel package starters are healthy. That's going to be a really nice group with Cyprian, with Byard, Ryan, Butler, Adoree. That's going to be a solid group to trust. And even the backups aren't too shabby either, that were the early subs this year. Yeah. So I'm excited.
Yeah, we all know Crookshanks and everything. Is he second? Is he kind of in the mix going up, or is he still kind of learning right now?
He is he's definitely in that learning stage. And I think in positional drills, he had to be coached up a few times, redirected, kind of had to be walked through an extra rep on one of the drills. So he's not in the second team right now. Actually, Demetri Hurst and Kendrick Lewis were the first subs on at the safety positions. Hurst has been more of a corner, but he can play safety, and so did some there. And Cruikshank can play corner as well, so he's kind of like that flex play. I don't really know where he is in the depth chart at corner. With Ty Smith, LaShawn Sims, those two look like they had the 4 and 5 corner spots. So I think that's why Hurst is wanting to make the roster more as a safety. And Cruikshank is going to have his work cut out for him if he wants to make the active team right away, believe it or not, which is, I mean, it's one day, but, he's got to pick it up.
Well, he did get a pick today, right? Or did I misread that? I thought I read somewhere that Cruikshank did.
If he did, it was there was one deflected interception that bounced off like 3 or 4 people.
Oh,
but
okay. So it was more like by luck than by skill.
Yeah, if it wasn't that, then it was just one of the one-on-one reps I didn't see. But I'm pretty sure I saw all the one-on-one interceptions. So it was probably the one I couldn't really tell who picked it. It was just a mess of 3 or 4 defensive players like running into each other.
Oh.
So if that was his pick, that's not on him anyway.
I think with Cruikshank, like if he is going to make the 53, I think it'll be on special teams for sure.
Yeah,
but I would
they want
be.
him to. They really want him to, and so
They do.
I think he will. I'm not saying he's not, but he just kind of had a rough first day. But I mean, he's a rookie, so happens.
Yeah, I could see him kind of playing that the new age like hybrid linebacker role that can also cover, kind of like Cravens from USC, Sua Cravens. I could kind of see him eventually go into that role too, due to just having that freaky athleticism. You know what I mean? That can earn him a surprising spot on the 53. I don't know who he would bump out, but
Yeah, I mean, with the Titans rotation, the way that they work, at least they worked last year, I know it's going to be a little bit different, but they only truly have like one every down linebacker, and that was Woodard last year. I mean, and then their second guy tends to have only like 60-something% of the snaps. So when they, go to even lighter packages like dime stuff, having a guy like Cruikshank to almost play linebacker, but also be able to slide out in the slot and cover whoever's out there, and being physical enough at the line to get a tackle, that kind of skill set definitely comes in handy. So I think he will be fine, but didn't have the perfect beginning, especially in positional stuff. But it's just he's a rookie. We'll give him some slack.
Yeah, he's a rookie. We'll cut him some slack.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now for if we could jump back over to the offensive side of the ball, a couple of surprising things. Let's go to receiver. I know that Taiwan ended up having the most overall reps with the ones, and Tajay Sharp only had 9 reps with the ones.
Yeah, which I think that's mainly because I was surprised, but when they went to 3 wide, basically that was always Campanero in the slot. So I think that's going to be Taiwan. He's going to be shoved back into that slot role once Richard's back. But Campanero took the starting slot gig, which was, like I said, a little bit surprising. Pretty much 100% of the time, he didn't even have a single second or third team rep, because his only reps came first team slot. That's it. And so Tajay, he had to come in with the basically second run of wide receivers with the first team with Mariota. So it would be him and Darius Jennings. So they had almost identical reps with the first team today because they were, the 2 outside guys behind K1 and Corey. And to be honest, Darius Jennings had a better day than Sharp did. So he's not a lock to make the roster.
That's crazy to me.
Tajay is not a lock.
That's crazy.
Wow. Well, I would not have seen that one coming. I would have thought, he was doing pretty good, and he had injury, and then year off, and so it's like, okay, you're not going to be the 1 or the 2, but maybe like
Yeah.
4.
I mean,
You'll be the first one.
yeah. I think it's just because Campanero is probably going to make it just for special teams, and Corey, Richard, and Taiwan are definitely the top 3. So that's 4 spots already. And Darius Jennings has been better than him. That's 5, and then they've got a bunch of super cheap undrafted free agent rookies they could check out. And VC's been looking good. Batson's been looking good. Deontay Burnett made a crazy catch today. So there's just a lot of it's not a given. I'd say if it were today, yeah, he'd still be the guy on the roster, but he just needs to do more with his reps.